Hey everybody, it's Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of The Break It Down Show. Introducing today's guest, Stephen Tyszka. Stephen Tyszka is an entrepreneur, a blues musician who's worked in Hollywood, and also a yogi, the kind of guy that's got balance in his life and gives that kind of understanding to startup companies. He's been down the path. He's gotten them to sales, to IPOs, all that stuff. And I thought he would be a great guest today as we try to look at the new year and what we're going to do and understand just what's out there. Specifically today, we're going to talk about a couple of his companies that he's working on that are focused on how do you monetize podcasts? You're a crazy kid that's a gamer. How does he look at monetizing? How do you take smaller audiences, what they call micro or even nano influencers, and turn that into actual revenue? Well, he's got a company called Nfluence, the letter N, Fluence.gg. Of course, there's also his other company, bigmusic.com, and then there's finally music.com. All of these things are focused on getting creators creating in a way that makes sense for big brands to partner with smaller influencers. Because what we're understanding now as we go forward is that, yes, big brands want to have big impact, like the Super Bowl commercial. But what if you could get in front of really rich, deep audiences? Like you guys love what we do here. I love what we do here. That's why you love it. We all love the same thing. So how do you introduce your big brand into those things? So we'll talk about a bunch of brands in the show, like Coca-Cola is our example we use a lot. Not that we're funded by Coke, but this is what the future could look like. It could look like Taco Bell supporting the Break It Down Show, even with small amounts of money as we all work as a community and consume things. So it's a really neat conversation. I know you're going to enjoy it. By the way, you can't tell this right now, but on my Bulletproof podcast rig, I'm recording and there is a tree being cut down next door. Our backyard right now is being manicured by the gardeners, and the young fella in the house is in the shower with his music rocking. But the road-tested, proven bulletproof podcast rig, my SM35 Shure microphones, and my Zoom H6. By the way, not paid by either company to say that. This is just straight-up advice. If you're going to start something, let's go. Let's get this podcast gear going out the door. By the way, you'll notice something. By the end of the show, Steven and I fallen so much in love. He loves the creation thing so much. He wants to have a podcast. So I want you guys to create whatever it is that you're out there. I want to show you the path to hopefully get some cash for any kind of audience you can build. And today we're going to do that with Stephen Tyszka. By the way, hat tip, big deep hat tip, to John Gates, who produced and sat in on this episode. He is it's his first episode he brought, and we've got other ones coming from him. You know, the more we go around, the more folks are interested in doing what we're doing, and it's just growing. So we're all in on this ride together. Share the show, buy the shirts, contribute in whatever way you can, and of course, savethebrave.org. Go to Save the Brave, hit the donate tab, pick a small amount each month. Now, I can see our donations are going up because you guys are doing this. Thank you so much. Tell your friends, share. The charities that do the best are the ones that have the best marketing. That's just the bottom line. So the more people know about Save the Brave and the powerful stuff that we're doing, the better. If you want to help in some other way, whether capacity, your presence, sharing, whatever it is, all of those things have value and we appreciate it. Here comes Stephen Tyszka.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Stephen Tyszka on the Break It Down Show with Pete Turner.
Yep, we're at your gorgeous house. It is ridiculous. It smells like lemongrass in here. There's exposed rafters, a lovely Christmas tree with an angel on top, and I've got the lovely John Gates sitting on my right. We're in your conversation pit with your fantastic fireplace. I'm describing these things because you've got a very comfortable living space. You know, you're a meditator and all these things. You're also an entrepreneur. Meditation and an entrepreneur at your level has to go together. Someone who does what you do, they have to have that yin and yang. Because I've met a lot of entrepreneurs and they just crush it. But you can crush it too long and crush yourself.
It's so true. And thank you so much for the kind words with the home. I actually owe all of this beauty to my wonderful wife, Christy, because if it was me, it'd be like a little bachelor pad probably.
Yeah.
So this is true, what you're saying, because as we've seen over the last couple decades, mindfulness, meditation, these things are really becoming mainstream. Phil Jackson claims that they won some of the titles with their group meditations before games. And we also see people like Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey and many others who claim that meditation has really helped them in their field. I think it goes together because a good entrepreneur is not really acting solely on data, because a good entrepreneur is creating things that don't exist, or they're making things a lot better and they have to get super creative. That requires a tremendous amount of intuition. And I do believe that daily meditation over the months and years gives you that clarity of mind, and the intuition becomes heightened.
When you come into a company, are you founding it or are you coming in as an expert within your segment?
So I've done both. I've founded a handful of companies and also come in to either advise or even run teams. And a lot of times in those cases, I'm brought on specifically for intuition or some subject matter expert in a field that I have history in. I was also in the entertainment industry as a rock blues guitar player and singer for 20 years or so.
Yeah.
So I bring some of that into some of the startups. Our newest one is called Nfluence with an N, Nfluence.gg, if you want to see us on the web. This is a new one that I founded with two partners, Ethan Yao and Khalid Malik. We're all kind of little serial entrepreneurs running around trying to create things that don't exist. And for me, that's the most exciting part of the whole thing.
So when I get folks that are firmly rooted in the past, and God bless, like you have to have some kind of rooting, and they look at Tesla and, or Hanford, where, on 5, when you come, there's a Tesla charging station there. And yeah, at Thanksgiving time, there might be 100 Teslas there right now. Give that 20 years, and there will be Tesla charging stations everywhere. Teslas will likely charge themselves at some point, because there's guys like you who hire software engineers. And this is the thing I learned from Popping the Bubble, the show we just talked earlier off the mic. You never bet against software engineers, because they will connect the spider web and just solve a 10,000ths of a problem, but they never stop. They always go forward.
So true. I have a funny joke on that. How is software and a cathedral alike?
I don't know.
First you build them, then you pray. Because when we're building this stuff, we don't always know if it's going to work or how it's going to work.
Yeah.
So we're diving into these concepts or ideas or visions.
Yeah.
And we come to the engineers and we say, hey, can you guys do this? And half the time the answer is, yeah, sure. And half the times it's, we don't know. We've never done this. But they figure it out and they get it done. And
to try to illustrate how small these things can be, among other things, this one company that I know, they track data, which, okay, big surprise. But they track data for like major server farms. And they would analyze the speed of every fan in your server farm. And if they saw variations, you'd get alerted, head over to that server and start to service that fan, pull it out, and you can plan for it. Instead of, it falls, it's like, oh man, now you get a multi-system failure and you got big problems. And you're nodding your head yes, because you're like, yes.
Know all about it, yeah. So it's interesting too, because I kind of see myself as an entrepreneur as, I guess, partly looking into the future, but the other real side of it is a simple problem solver. Just what are the big problems that can be solved, that it's feasible to solve? And what are the software or tech solutions that we can dream up, and can we make it work?
I want to back up. And a second ago, you said that you were a blues musician, and you bring that to your startups. Now, I've got an idea what you're going to say, but I want to hear you say it so I actually can realize it. What on earth does being a, peanuts on the floor, growling blues musician have to do with a startup entrepreneur?
Well, I guess I'll start by saying I'm involved in a couple of music-related startups. One of them is music.com.
Okay.
So it's really fun to participate in these startups and creating tech solutions for the music industry, because I know the space really well. And as an artist who struggled in Hollywood year after year, playing every stage up and down the strip, I know that there are challenges. And one of them, of course, is we have all these musicians, we have all these artists, we have all these people doing their craft, including you, Pete.
Thank you.
Because you are an artist doing your podcast, but how do you monetize your audience? That's the big question. We've in the last 10, 20 years with social media been building these followings. And now what do we do with all these people? How do we monetize them? I'm the little guy. I'm not Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber.
Right.
So those are the types of questions that I try to ask and then answer.
Yeah, because it's easy for Coke to show up to Taylor Swift and be like, just drink a Coke on stage and here's $250,000.
It's exactly it.
We'll give you an empty can. We'll give you a can with water in it.
Right.
But
so that's an interesting point. Maybe I'll segue a little bit here into something, which is based on the new company, Nfluence.gg. So what we noticed was what you said is true, but people are wising up these days. Mm-hmm. They know that when Kim Kardashian walks out with the Coach purse or Taylor walks out with the Coca-Cola, like you said, it's an empty can and she got paid $250 for it. So the reality is we see that authenticity and true engagement is where we have value. So that said, we are creating a platform for influencers to actually micro and nano influencers to monetize their influence. And that doesn't really exist on this level yet because there's no way for brands like a Coca-Cola to go and perform a campaign with 10,000 micro-influencers.
Yeah.
They can't track 10,000 people what they're doing this week.
Right.
So we're creating technology that allows us to track what 10 or 100 or even 1 million people are doing on a daily basis online on their Facebook and their Twitch and their Mixer and live streams like this, so that we can now allow brands like Coca-Cola to work with these little guys. And people say, yeah, but is it really important for them to work with this little guy? He only has 100 people listening to his show. Well, the reality is when you have 10,000 people with 100 people listening to their show, those numbers actually are greater than the Justin Biebers or the Taylor Swifts. And it's more authentic because there's more connection with your audience. You're not this megastar with this big gap.
Yeah. Think about this when I refer to my audience, and I truly mean this. I call them my friends, and a lot of them actually are my friends because of the show. These aren't friends that I brought into the show thing. And of course, my regular friends barely. And you know this, you're a musician. You're like, hey, dude, buy my album, buy my shirt, and come see me play. They're like, you know what? I love you. No.
So true.
So true. Over again. Oh, I wanted to ask you this before we get too far past it. We will get back to Nfluence, but when was the last time getting a gig at the Whiskey was a launch pad? Because, I get it. You can still go there. It's still a mega achievement. You're playing on the same stage as, name it, Jim Morrison, whoever, but it's not what it was.
No.
When was the last band that went there and was like, that cracked them?
So like in the 80s, of course, there was like Motley Crue and that whole era of like all the metal bands. And I don't remember all the names right now, but they're, you know who they are. Guns N' Roses, GNR got broken at the Coconut Teaser, I believe, and et cetera, et cetera. And then in the 90s, we saw a couple bands come out of LA. Mm-hmm. But, after that, there really hasn't been much. I think a lot of that has to do with digital distribution and the internet and social media, because the way it used to work in Hollywood was you'd book your shows, you'd build your audience.
Right.
And once you're able to show 30,000 units of sales with 30,000 units, you can go to any record label in Hollywood and they'll give you a record deal. And that's how it worked. So what you do is you build your audience over the course of a couple years, you sell 30,000 units, you bring the A&R down, they like you, they sign you. Not the case anymore.
Right.
Because everyone can do their music online from their bedroom with their little $20 webcam.
Okay. So first off, 30,000 units is still a bar.
Yeah.
You want to get in at Podcast One, you need to have 30,000 followers regularly following your show. And then you're at like the bargain basement, like, okay, we'll bring you in. You qualify. Not like, hey, we want you here. It's like, yeah, we won't say no to you, So you still have to get above that bar. The other thing that you said that was interesting is you have to build an audience. And you used to have to do it here because then you also got exposure from K-Rock. Mm-hmm. The right DJ on K-Rock plays your stuff, bam, you get to 30,000 in an instant. That's not the case anymore because there is no guy at K-Rock. There's some dude that probably loves music but can't. It has to. How many songs can they put into a 3 or 4 hour session that they actually get to pick? Like 5?
Yeah, it's not even, maybe not even that.
It might not even be when he's sitting there. Like your job is just to talk and then shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that said, Tom Petty and his buddies burn the ships. They drive west. I know you don't have to do that anymore, but what do we lose by not having that moment where you're like, we're going to take our stand and we're going to go? And look, we've had a lot of guys from a lot of bands who were in the hair metal era, and they were the second cut. They're 80% of what Motley Crue was, and that gets you a touring gig in Japan.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get you over the top, right? So talk a little bit about what do we lose, or how has the market evolved, and do we lose something by not having the Blackhearts drive in a car that's barely going to make it?
So this is a really interesting question. I had a record deal in the 2000s with a label that was still, I say dinosaur status. They wanted to fight piracy. They wanted to make sure that my music was paid for if anyone's listening. And I said, guys, this isn't the way it's done anymore. And they were old timers.
Yeah.
And so we know that model certainly doesn't work. There was certainly also something about being in the industry, being in Hollywood. I will say that is invaluable because I've met and played and written with all sorts of celebs that, I would have no access to otherwise. And Hollywood is a funny place because if you get your little toe in the door, and the person there likes you, you get thrown into the whole enchilada. So that's something that we don't see outside of that. As far as, I think, again, the digital distribution really changed the play because now a 13-year-old with a $50 webcam can go and become a celebrity. And that's what Justin Bieber did, right? Justin Bieber was posting stuff on YouTube, and I think it was Usher. Yeah, who found him, and now he's the biggest pop star in the world almost.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different thing now. By the way, I'm not sure that I answered your question. I'm not sure that was your question.
I think you are answering it. I think you're nailing down the get in the car and go to LA odyssey. Because yes, getting here does give you access to, hey, I'm scoring movies. The guy that's 2 levels above you who can't afford a big player is like, you can play the guitar like crazy. I smoke the guitar. Okay, come on.
So in Hollywood, too, being in the industry, I think, is tremendous because of those reasons.
Yeah.
One of my things that happened was I was playing on it was like my first month there. I didn't have any gigs yet, right?
Yeah.
And so I was playing on the street corner, Hollywood and Highland.
Nice.
And
Perfect.
this guy walks by, and people would walk by, put $1 in my case. I'd make $50 an hour. I wasn't doing bad. $300 for a 6-hour shift.
Yeah.
But he walks by, this is in the 90s. He walks by and he stops and he listens and listens and listens. And I get done with the song and he said, are you available tomorrow? And I said, for what? And he said, I'm from ETV. We have a project and our guitar player just canceled.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for someone. And ironically, So you have these little weird opportunities. And that led to a gig with Motown. And that led to working with some celeb. It's like one thing leads to the next. And that doesn't exist, I think, unless you're in the smack dab middle of the whole thing.
Yeah, because that guy, we had just today's show going up right now is a guy named Robert Hunter. He's an ambassador. Was the ambassador for NATO from the Clinton administration. And the thing he said is, as we hit these big problems, I learned that there is someone who has the answer, someone who has the expertise to guide us that's not in this room. And I want to have all of those people that I can so that I can solve a problem, so I can bring in insight. And so that A&R guy, that music producer, that whoever that person is walking down the street, he's trained to listen. Like, oh wait, here's a busker. Oh, and if you're going to be in major leagues of busking, especially in LA, that's it right there, like on that street. So he hears that. It's like, this is a guy I can use. He can solve a problem. I happen to have a problem right now. And because of the digital access, those people can be found on YouTube. You don't have to leave your desk, and you can just say, staffer, find me all of the YouTube people. And yeah, the chances of a modern producer looking for a guy on the street busking, it's pretty low.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting thing too now. So I've been remote from Hollywood for about 15 years. I left the town. And I do not recall working in a Hollywood studio anytime in the last 15 years, but I've probably recorded about 500 songs in the last 15 years.
Wow. Yeah.
For client, for myself and for clients, because we do everything remote. They send me the drum tracks, and I can be in New York City that week and go and plug in my guitar into my little $1,000 recorder, and it's absolutely high, quality to send back. And you wouldn't know it wasn't recorded at Ocean Way in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah, and all those ocean ways in Hollywood, those places are closing down around the
They're
world.
closing down because
You don't need it.
So right before the podcast, I showed you, Pete, a picture of my
Yeah.
Studio A room, and it was a $500,000 build out, and it was lovely. But now I got rid of that, sold that, and I have something that's probably, in like the category of a tenth of that range, and it does exactly the same stuff that the $500,000 gear did.
So let's bring it back into the influencer side. A guy like me, I've got an audience. I have, I don't know, let's say half a dozen, maybe less, listeners in Saudi Arabia, in Western Saudi Arabia. What the hell is in Western Saudi Arabia? Well, a couple people that love the show, and I love those dudes, and they absolutely don't ever engage with me, but I can tell, I can see them. I can tell they listen all the time to the full. They love it.
Yeah.
And they're in Israel, and they're in Japan, and I'm purposely picking places that are very distant geographically, but also culturally from one another. Back over to Norway, we have people. So when I go to market, as a businessman, who the hell am I going to find that's like, oh, I want a really disparate audience that's passionate about who Pete is and what Pete does. Oh, who the hell can sell that, Yeah. And so having this influence marketplace, this platform, that's fantastic because there is value in my audience. It's just hard for me and the person who has the investing money to get together and then you have to actually make it work. Okay, great. I'm going to push your brand of CBD product or whatever it is.
Right.
It still has to work.
Yeah.
So
I guess I'll take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the new one.
Yeah.
Nfluence.gg, Nfluence.gg, which is the gamer extension. Good game. It's where a lot of the games are hosting now online. And the reason that we went with the GG is we're launching on the Twitch platform, which is a streaming platform for gamers. There's 2.3 million unique daily streamers, 15 million unique daily viewers. So huge markets here.
Yeah.
The problem is this. So I'll use you actually as the example.
Please.
Here. So you have this audience that you've built, as we've said. You want to monetize it. And you might get a Coca-Cola to say, we'll give you a couple $100 to mention us on a show. And, but mostly the big brands aren't going to be excited to work with anyone unless they're like, boom, they're up here. Right. So what happens now is, let me explain why they don't work with you. Not maybe you, but just any micro. I don't know. I don't even know how many. You can
Taco
edit this
Bell's
out.
not returning my phone calls.
Okay. Exactly. So let's use that as the example. That's perfect. So what we do is we actually have some biz dev guys from another one of our companies that has very deep relationships with top brands. So Taco Bell, for example, we go to Taco Bell and we say, hey, we know that you want to reach a new and a larger audience. And we know that you can do this with a couple of the macro influencers, which, like we said, has challenges because of the authenticity factor. But the reason that they work with these big influencers is they can put a marketing guy to track and validate and attribute whatever the ad delivery is from this person. So let's say it's Kobe Bryant is doing a Taco Bell commercial, okay? Of course, no problem. They just watched Kobe Bryant's social media and they count up all the likes and the tweets and all that. No one's going to do that for 10,000 people with 1,000 followers each or 100 followers. It's not going to happen. So we created a tech solution, Nfluence. This platform allows micro and nano influencers to sign on to the platform and to see brand offers from top brands, such as Taco Bell. Because we go to Taco Bell and we say, look, we have a reach of 10 million people because we have 10,000 influencers with X amount of followers each. For a budget of, let's say, 10 cents an eyeball, sets of eyeballs, we will get your brand in front of people that want your product.
Yeah.
Because our data technology also allows us to see the audience that we're delivering to through the influencer's account. So they sync their account with ours, and we actually can see the audience demographic.
Yeah.
So here's another example. Let's say Nike wants to do a campaign with us. Well, we're not going to serve Nike ads to the guy playing League of Legends online, but we're going to serve it to the guy who's playing Y2K golf. or John Madden football. Because then it makes sense that you see this guy promoting Nike. So in your case, we would promote brands that are endemic to your audience.
Sure. Yeah.
So now with this technology, these brands can actually track and validate that these brand impressions or brand deliveries were delivered. Now, I'll come back to that in a minute because that's a really important point, the validation part. We can get back into it, but about 40% of ad tech is fraud.
Yes.
Let's come back to that because we're solving another huge problem here.
Right.
We're feeding two birds with one scone. Okay. So going back to the way it works, we also want our ad deliveries to be super organic to the user. So what we ask our users to do, if it's a video influencer, then we say, we want you to use these products online. You don't have to talk about them, but wear the Nike hat.
Yeah.
Wear the Nike t-shirt. Or if you're streaming a game, have the Red Bull on your side by your mouse where you're streaming with the logo facing. Or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So they're organically sending out those brand impressions. They have smaller audiences.
Right.
And so they're more connected because if you have 100 followers, they're your softball friends and your neighbor and your schoolmates and your buds. It's organic. Nothing's being shoved down your throat. Or in your case, in a radio show, maybe if it's Coca-Cola, it might just be you peppering or using Coca-Cola. We've been using Coca-Cola as the example today.
Right.
Actually, this is a perfect use case. You should be getting paid from Coca-Cola for this podcast.
I totally agree.
And that's what Nfluence is going to enable you to do.
And it's way better than a live read. It was like live read. No. What you want me to do is use your brand in an example. I mean, that's absolutely, and I think about those things when I try to use I already am thinking about the example I want to use and sent me to use your example because I could have said Wells Fargo instead or Cheetos instead, but I used Coke because guess what? Top of mind, Yeah. All right. So I want to ask you this. So one of the things that I do is I make most of my money by doing podcasts for clients, right? I trade my capacity for their money because they don't know or don't want to know and everything else. So that's where most of my money comes from because the ad revenue part, you can't live on the ad revenue that I would generate.
Not yet.
And I'm particular about what I want to bring in the door because I am particular about that. And my audience, in my mind, as best I can measure, is me. It's guys like me who like what I like, ladies who like what I like. So I want to get into more bigger productions. So what I'd like to do, but I don't have I knock on Taco Bell's door all I want, and they ain't open that door, right?
No.
But I'm going to go on the road, and I'm going to do this show called Flyover, and this is really going to happen. And I can't quite self-fund it, but I can put together let's say the $3,000 to do this. But I'm going to get my truck. I'm going to drive north to Susanville, California, middle of nowhere. You got to go through Nevada to get there. And I'm going to do an interview there. And I'm going to do all these flyover interviews where I talk to real people in towns like Ames, Iowa, to get a sense of who we are. I don't know why, right? As we go into politics, and full blown, here's what's important. No shit, here is what is important. In Pocatello, Idaho.
Yeah.
All these towns. So why in the world wouldn't Taco Bell want to fuel my you don't got to give me any damn money, just give me tacos as I go because there's going to be a Taco Bell everywhere I go, right? And all the little brands that would want to be involved in that, but I have no ability to. By the time I sold all that, it would never get done.
That's right, exactly.
So how does a guy like me use a platform like Nfluence to solve that kind of a problem? Is that possible even?
So that's a really great question, and it's actually a question that a lot of people have, and no one's had the answer. And that's where Nfluence comes in.
Yeah.
We are trying to fill that hole. We're trying to solve that exact problem. And so we go out and do the biz dev deals for you. Just to be clear, we're actually creating a marketplace. It's a two-sided platform. So we go out, we find those deals for you. We call Taco Bell, we call Coca-Cola, we call AT&T, and we say, look, we got guys who have followings, and we can get your brand in front of it. The reason they don't work with you now, let's go back to the validation piece, because that's the problem.
For sure.
The problem is, how do they validate that you actually deliver your Coca-Cola ad on the air when they're working, when we say, we want you to work with 10,000 of these people,
right?
Or even, let's scale it down. We want to work with 100 podcasters.
Yeah.
How do we really track, you have 600 episodes, right. So we provide the validation. Our machine learning, artificial intelligence technology will watch and listen and whatever other ways you're delivering those ads to your stream. And every time that you say the word Coca-Cola, our machine goes bing, and it gives a little check mark. And it actually goes a step further. Our technology is being built by Sheldon AI in Colorado, Boulder, Colorado. It's a phenomenal AI company. They have added sentiment into the machine learning.
Yes.
So we can actually appreciate or depreciate your delivery of that word Coca-Cola for Coca-Cola. So they're not over or underpaying based on your sentiment. So the guy that's like, Coca-Cola, and he might be worth 5 cents a listener.
Yeah.
But Coca-Cola, like we had this, and you may be worth 15 cents a listener.
Yeah.
So the biggest problem, again, going back, is the validation. There's no way for them to track large-scale campaigns across hundreds or thousands of influencers.
Sure.
Now they can.
And it takes a whole, because of AI, you don't have to have an entire staff. I mean, again, back to your music industry background, first off, the music industry, we'll just say Columbia Records, they're incented to kind of fudge the numbers down. Like, hey, you guys had a great quarter. You sold 600,000 records. And then the other guy on their side's like, where's our platinum record?
Yeah.
We sold over 4 million.
Yes.
And like, we'll go to court and fight over that. And you're like, well, that ain't worth it. And so it goes the other direction too, where the Columbias of the world, whoever those people are, they can't down tune, or the comedy club owner who's like, it wasn't a full house. And you're like, yeah,
it was.
Yeah. My guy counted. He's like, well, there are 3 empty chairs. Yeah. Those people were at the bar, So it's interesting to have that proof and say, this is no shit what this is.
So I have an interesting story.
Yeah.
My rock and roll manager from 15 years ago was also Michael Jackson. He was with Michael Jackson and Bruce Springsteen prior. He was telling me that back in the day, so reporting has always been an issue, right? Whether it's ad tech or whether it's clubs. So reporting was a major issue back in the day. And the way it worked is that club promoters, as well as the house, as well as, so the merchandise, for example, the way it worked is that if you sold merch, you had to split 50-50 with the house. That's just how it worked.
Right.
Well, none of these guys wanted to give up 50%. So they would take the cash, I'm not kidding you, and they would strap stacks of bills up and down their legs and thighs and chest, and they'd wrap them in duct tape around them so that they could put their clothes on and walk out of the arena at the end of the night because Bruce sold, whatever $1 million worth of merch.
From Lions Rock Productions.
And so what they
We
did
create
is the
podcasts
reason they
around
took
here.
50-50
And if you, your brand,
was
or your
because they
company
knew
want
this
to
was
figure
going
out
on.
how to do a podcast,
So that's how they
just talk to me.
compensated. So
I'll
it's
give
the
you the
same in
advice on the
ad
right
tech
gear,
right
the
now.
best plan, and show you how to take a
Brands are
podcast that makes sense for you,
overpaying
that's
for
sustainable,
their ad
that's
deliveries
scalable,
to make
and
up for
fun.
the
Hit me up at
40%
Pete
of
at
fraud. And we see it in
breakitdownshow.com.
every
Let me help. I
single
want to hear
place
about
where
it.
there's digital user acquisition.
I want to make a point about this. And by the way, I love Bing, and I wish I could do more business with Bing. So let's understand that I'm using them from a place of love. They give me, because I'm in a special program, they give me 10,000 free impressions a day. So what? Makes no difference. First off, I can't target completely. And so I've got this sort of hobble-legged, impression machine. And yeah, it delivers 10,000 impressions, but shouldn't I have seen a spike? Shouldn't I have seen, and I don't. And so literally they're disincenting me to buy Bing ads because here's free. And granted, maybe the other package is better, but is it? I can't tell what it does. I can't specialize it. And I won't buy Google ads anymore because AdWords is, like you said, it's overpriced, $500 a month.
Now. It's too
and I'm
expensive.
like, what, and what am I getting out of it? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Facebook doesn't work. Instagram doesn't work. And, you can mess around with them and everything. But the thing is I'll spend a couple $100 a month and I never get that value back. Never.
No. And that's literally what we're solving. And as you said, we've automated our product.
Yeah, it's great.
The Nfluence product is fully automated. So I'll walk you through a real brief.
Please.
Okay. You as the influencer, I'll start right from the beginning. We go out and make biz dev deals with these top brands. Okay. We post them on the influence.gg platform. You as the influencer join the platform. You tell us what you do, and if let's say I'll go back to the gaming is a really easy thing to use as an example. You play sports games primarily, or you play shooters primarily, or you play puzzle or strategy games, whatever it is. So we align our brand partners with the types of content that you're creating.
Yeah, that's great.
You select the ad. So we only surface to you ads that make sense for you to deliver to your audience. You select an ad and you do whatever it says, like talk about, mention Coca-Cola on your stream, for example. And our technology is listening, and we get the check marks, like I said. We add sentiment value, and then we actually send Coca-Cola a folder at the end of your campaign with every single little audio clip of you saying Coca-Cola. They want to go through it. They're welcome to listen to every single spot. And we do this for all the thousands of people we're serving it for. But we've validated you. We've given you we have 100% attribution, and Coca-Cola pays out for what they got, not a penny more, not a penny less. And so that means that you as the user, it's completely you as the influencer, completely seamless, completely automated, zero stress.
So let's just use, for simple math, let's just use the number. It's 10 cents an impression on average, because obviously the sentiment matters. And let's say that there's 10,000 impressions over the course of a month. You can get to, I guess it's
$1,000.
Yeah, $1,000. Okay.
Yep.
And then what's your guys' cut?
So we assess a 20% platform fee from the brand when they place the ad insertion order.
I'll say, what? Wow, okay.
And which is great.
Yeah.
And we also assess a 20% fee to the influencer, based on the revenues that you bring in.
So if I bring in 1,000, I'm going to cut you a check for 200 of that 1,000.
That's correct. We're going to only pay you out 800 of that.
And technically, you're going to take out your cut out front, so there's no actual check writing. Thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, that's our business model.
Right.
But it's sweet. So, by the way, we found that to be the sweet spot because it's really what all these marketplace platforms are doing right now. Like, let's take Airbnb.
Yeah.
So, Airbnb, you as the homeowner pays a fee to place your ad on Airbnb.
Right.
Or maybe it's when someone rents your place. I'm not a
Airbnb guy.
Yeah. And then when I rent your place, I also pay a platform fee to Airbnb. So Airbnb is getting paid twice, like eBay, same thing, right? You post a fee, you pay a commission on
both
the site.
sides pay. Yeah. And then, okay, so here's one of the problems with an Airbnb or VRBO. I think they own them. I think Airbnb owns VRBO now. One of the problems with, same thing as Ticketmaster, is like, hey, all of a sudden the fees cost damn near as much as the tickets, if not more sometimes. Yeah. So how do we lock that in? I mean, like, I'm not trying to put you guys to commit forever. Like, we'll never raise our rates or anything. But it does seem that, like, so Patreon is a good example. I love that Patreon exists. It's a great idea. But Patreon pimps its, and I'm doing quoted fingers, its audience to get series funding. Like, well, that's not your audience. Right. At best, it's our audience. And so really Patreon, ultimately, when I'm critical of them, Patreon's good for Patreon. And if they like your brand, if they make that money, they feature you at the expense of the nano influencer or the person. So everybody's like, I'll just do there are thousands, and this isn't good for Patreon, and I know they know this too. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of accounts that are just sitting there derelict, because the platform is not magic. It's all hard work and audience building. So when we look at that problem, what are your thoughts?
So, well, I want to tail right off on what you said there, audience building. So that's another thing that's magical about what we're doing at Nfluence is that we're not only providing this monetization platform, and for the brands, we're providing a new way for them to spend organically with actual validation. We also help our influencers build their audience. We provide tools for them, like how to deliver these ad units organically, or how to build your audience by, because we want to help you also create a larger audience, because then we can serve more ads as well.
Yeah, because again, that person who has the dream and the dream gets crushed because they're not making $500 a month even on their thing, and they can't even make $5 a month come in, how do you justify? I mean, look, you're a blues musician. You know how many hours. You will never get back your hourly rate where it's worth your time to be a blues musician, Yeah, right?
I got tens of thousands of hours behind the instrument. You'll never
make it. Same thing with my podcast. I mean, 70 hours a week. Come on. That's not enough, right? And so you could pay me however much money, but I'll never get caught up on the amount of hours it took to get to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So to build that audience, to get that dream off the ground, any kind of help is a magic thing.
So that's actually a great point, because Influence also wants to help the influencer build their audience.
Right.
And that's why it's cool. And that will allow you, if you were making $500 a month, you will build your audience.
Yeah.
Now you have some budget to play
Right.
with, and there's like a little fire under your tail, and it's if I can make 500, why can't I make 1,000? I need to double my audience size, etc.
Yeah.
So you're right. It is audience building, and I think that not only monetizing is what people want, it will allow them to create larger, deeper audiences.
There's a thing I was thinking about, because when you think about these ideas, right, this is why software and entrepreneurship is great. You're like, what if, and there's 1,000 what ifs, it's like you write 1,000 songs and one is good. But you start to realize that if you have 10,000 influencers all working on your brand, Coca-Cola, and I'm assuming you guys have, I'm just guessing that you already have this in your path, like phase 2, we'll start to do this because you're already gathering the audio. But there's that where's the beef moment when someone's like, where's the beef? Mm-hmm. And then it ignites. And I bet you guys can see that. And now you've got 10,000 people trying to make a viral moment happen for your brand where, we say things like, seriously? That was invented by, I think, Krista Vernoff on not ER, but what's that show? Grey's Anatomy. I think she wrote that. And so it became something that we all say, we don't even know where. I happen to know the attribution just by luck, and it could be wrong on that, but I think that's what it is. So those moments are possible, and you guys can see them, right?
And so that's another interesting thing, too, is one of the nice things about all of this digital medium is that we have data behind every single thing we're doing. You can see your audience. You know what country they're tuning in from. You know probably demographic data, et cetera. So we're getting better and better at targeting or even hyper-targeting, not only for the brands, but even the audience. So like we may be able to help you build a specific audience segment. Mm-hmm. You may find that there's a high-value segment that you're missing out on. And so there's ways, too, that we can look at that, like who has disposable cash. If we're talking larger products, maybe Toyota wants to do a thing with you. Right. And so you need people that have $20,000, $30,000 disposable cash. So do you have that demographic in your listening stable? So I don't know. But the point, though, is that we can help build that audience. Because we can go find those people and put those people in front of the brands.
As things become more and more app driven, we'll use Taco Bell as an example again. Orange County company. We're in Orange County. And I want to create some goodwill. But there should be the ability to create the Pete instead of the number one. How unoriginal is that? What is Pete's combo? And then bam, like, hey, do you want to get the Pete when you go? Because my iPhone already says, hey, fatty, do you want to go to Zoe's to eat lunch? And I'm like, no, phone. It's 5 minutes to home. Hey, do you want a Pete at Taco Bell? Yes, I do. Yes, bam, you push the button and you literally, Taco Bell gets an order and you drive it 5 minutes later, it's ready to go. I mean, that is happening right now. Yeah. And then imagine now if you can associate that with the show and just say, yeah, make sure you get the Pete when you go to Taco Bell and I get an extra penny or whatever it is every time someone does.
So I'm glad you said that. If I can, I'd love to plug another one of my companies.
Please do.
ATM.com.
Okay.
So Michael Gleason and Walter Cruttenden are the founders and CEO and chairman, respectively, of ATM.com. They came up with a really, really cool idea. They said, all of these, just like you said, right? All of these companies like a Taco Bell, they would love to have you drive through their drive-through today. But how do you grab that person right there? So we've created technology at ATM.com. You register and we can see, we'll pay you if you're willing to turn on your location tracking, your GPS. Well, why are we going to pay you to turn on your GPS? Well, because Taco Bell's a mile away and Taco Bell wants to pay you 20 cents to go try a 99-cent taco right now.
Right now.
Love this. And so you get a note, pop up on your phone, and it says Taco Bell's 1 mile away on your left. We want to pay you to try a taco. So that's what ATM.com does. And the reason it's called ATM.com, isn't it? Yeah. It's your personal ATM. It's your digital wallet. It's your ATM, right? You need an extra $5? Oh, look at AT&T wants to offer you $5 to look at their offer for their new phone, their new package, whatever.
Right.
So there's a way to make $10, $20, $50 a month doing that. So I guess let me let me pull this back for a minute. What I'm trying to get at is that we, as a society, are entering a gig economy.
Yeah.
We're all making micro monies in various different ways. My friend and partner, Walter Cruttenden, founder of Acorns, this was his movement. This is kind of where I got that inspiration from. And, he's taken these massive hurdles and he brought them down to these little kiddie, bumps that we could all cross. But what we found is you jump 10, you jump 100, you jump 1,000 hurdles. Next thing you know, you're building real muscle.
Yeah.
So that's the concept in the micro-influencing, micro-money, micro-investing movements.
It's true. With cryptocurrency and software-based money, let's just say that, you really can incent and reward behaviors, attention, location. All of these things are exchangeable now. They weren't before. And as companies start to realize this, if Taco Bell's first in the door with that, hey, because we know, my phone knows when I normally eat lunch. My phone is tied to my credit card. And I'm like, hey, you're at Taco Bell. Hey, don't forget, I'll get you 20% off right now if you go. I know you're going to eat lunch right now anyhow. And I'm like, you know what? I'm impressionable.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go.
Well, and see, I think that's also part of the magic of the way that we're trying to deliver these ad units. First of all, they don't have to feel like an ad unit. They could be like, oh, we're your assistant trying to help you make good choices, or the choices you want to make at least. But also, by making everything easy, and it's even gamified a little bit, right? Like you're driving by, like Taco Bell wants to offer you money. It's like, oh. So it's creating a little bit of a dopamine release. I think we are playing with reward mechanics here.
Sure.
And that's why it works, I think.
How do you balance between, so I've got 15 apps on my phone, and I'm just making up a number, and everybody's going to be doing this in the very near future, trying to access my personal assistant. And so I'm going to have to neck them down, and I'm going to have to, I have to manage the attention. You and I'm looking at your magical yoga meditation symbol thing up on the wall up there. We don't need, I turn all of my alerts off. My phone vibrates, and a lot of times it's off vibrate because whoever calls me can be called back.
That's right.
So how do we deal with, again, balancing the binging, blooping, magical dopamine triggering machines that I don't want in my life?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There's two ways we do it.
Okay.
One, we build these products or apps brand centric.
Okay.
So they're kind of cool. Number one, right? If you look at what we do versus perhaps a competitor like with the ATM app, there's no real direct competitor right now, but we also have a leg up with everyone because we also call it ant transaction machines, ATM. And we have ants, cute little ants all over the place. And it sounds silly, but when you're talking about giving people your data, like your location, right? Facebook has already overreached, right? No one wants to deal with that anymore. So we've learned some lessons there. But if we are your friend and we're operating the second part of the equation in the background of your life, it's the set it and forget it mentality, then you as the consumer are good with that. That was the theory when Jeffrey Cruttenden and Walter Cruttenden came up with Acorns. It was that it's happening in the background of your life. You set it and you forget it and it's done. And so all of these apps and products that we're developing also are using that set it and forget it type of technology.
Yeah. And the set it and forget it in the case of Acorns is creating a positive net for you as opposed to, we'll use Facebook, a positive net. It's hard to get a positive out of Facebook when they have that much attention, that much, especially when they monetize you and you don't get compensated for it. Like I like to use the example of Nest. When Nest sold to ABC, to Google, they didn't buy a thermostat company. They bought a data company. And that data company is taking your data and Google is making money on it. That can't and won't last because the software is not going to let it. I mean, these things are going to be exchangeable. Fine, I'll take a hit on set it and forget it settings and you guys can scrape your bigger share, but I want to passively collect this money for sure. And
that was exactly the theory behind ATM.com. Every time you like something on Facebook or search on Google, they're collecting your data and they're profiting off of it. Yeah. But one of our partners also in ATM is Will I Am, the artist, and he is really about his data rights. He's really very strongly started a movement that it's your data, it's your intellectual property, you own it, you should be receiving the benefit of it.
Yeah.
And that is why ATM exists, is we're helping to redirect those dollars that are being, I'll say, pillaged from the consumer without any reward but a free search platform, and making sure that you get your intellectual property valued and paid for.
Well, just so, I mean, that's already changed too. I know everybody uses Google and it's almost funny to say Bing, but reality is Bing compensates me for my use of their platform.
And that's why you're switching to Bing.
I've got, switch. I've already got, and a couple times over, I've already made $100 by just simply searching on Bing. Like I've got $105 in my account right now that I could transfer into, and it's software based, right? So I can go to REI and I lose a small percentage of that by going there. But if I stay in-house to Microsoft, they bump it up and I get 110% of my value. Yeah. So these things are coming. You said earlier, you are brought in partly because you deal in the future. So not necessarily on the brands that you're working on, but what else do you see coming? Because this is all pretty exciting to know that I can walk around and have 57 different micro or nano streams of money coming into me. Again, individually, whatever. It's a couple, like I use Bumped. We were talking about that earlier. I think I've got $11 in my account, but I'm not a big consumer. If I'm a mom, holy shit, if I go to Costco and I get a little bit of money, a stock from Costco, not only is it a reward that grows over time as the stock grows, but you're also, you're doing nothing for this money other than your normal, activity.
And, that's a great point. We work with some top behavioral scientists. And one of the things that we've learned is you cannot change people's behaviors.
Right.
What you have to do is assign a positive outcome to their existing behaviors.
Right.
And that's what we try to do with all the companies that we're building, is not change what you're doing. We're not trying to say, now you have to stream with this Coca-Cola and you have to spin it around and do a dance and praise Coca-Cola. It's not that. You're just going to do what we do. That was completely the Taco Bell and Coca-Cola thing.
Yes.
And we're just talking. And so that's, that's kind of, I think, where it's all headed. So I think that where we're headed is, well, we have to look and see what the people's needs are right now.
Okay.
We all want it faster, bigger, better, cheaper. Right? So I think ultimately that's where it's headed. And so what does that mean? And we also want it more fun. We want it not just easy. We want it to be fun. And as we look at the Gen Zs and the next generation after this coming up, like more and more, they want to be engaged. And we also know that although the younger crowd they really consume content, they may not be viable sources of income quite yet because 16-year-olds they don't have spending power. Right. But we're farm schooling them so that as they turn into the 25-year-old, they're going to be spending money in the places that impacted them when they were 16 years old. So I think where it's going is we're trying to reach younger audiences sooner. I think that the products have to get more and more working in the background of your life with zero attention. No one wants to give, even like apps now where you have to press too many, you have to tap too many times to get what you want done. I won't use them.
Yeah.
If it's more than 3 taps to achieve something, it's too much. Simple, fun. I think also this monetizing thing is part of where it's going. Everyone has some influence. We should all be able to monetize our gift.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a wonderful way to look at that. And you're right. The ability to monetize your day-to-day activities, which have value. Just before in the past, it was hard to identify and impossible to actually realize. But my day-to-day activities have value for other people. That whole, I think about $1, right? I go to the store to buy a loaf of bread and I give you $1. Everybody's got a little piece of that dollar coming out. And with software, you can eliminate a lot of you no longer have to have 2 dudes in an armored truck show up to pull that dollar out of the store and safely transmit it to the bank. There doesn't have to even be an accountant on any end of it. It's automatically accounted for.
All automated.
And so there's more of that dollar left. Can I have some of my dollar back? And you guys can have some of that extra. And so there's really an improvement. There's less cost in moving that dollar from A to Z.
So true. The cost of money movements have come down tremendously in the last 10 years. That makes a big difference. What gold was in the 1800s became what oil was in the 1900s is becoming what data is in the 2000s. It's the next big, where the trillions of dollars are. We're just getting better at combing that raw data and building real, actionable info from that data. And as the data sets grow, I think we get better and better. Everything costs less. Everything is easier and faster. And it'll be more and more based on the actual data itself and not on, we're flying blind here.
Let's do this, and this will probably be my last question for you, and I'll let you ask me questions if you want, but let's do the same thing with music, right? So we used the Black Hearts earlier as an example. They got in their shitty cars and they drove west. And we know that that's not necessarily the model anymore because it's very hard to make it in LA. And it also seems like not only big bands, but just being a successful band is for now maybe a thing of the past because it's hard to keep a band together and there are so many distractions for individual artists. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last big band, and maybe it's the Killers. And I know there's a lot of modern bands, but they're not on the level of even the Killers now, No.
So this is really interesting, actually, and I'm glad you circled back to music. I think one of the things that we're seeing now, by the way, this is just my own.
For sure.
Yeah. I think that cell phones have done great things for us when used as a great tool, as a proper tool. But they've also caused us to lose our ability to concentrate and focus on one thing or on one person.
Yeah.
And we're all over the place now, right? And what that does, it creates and social media too, a constant, incessant need to consume more and fresh and different. And so it's like, have you seen people? I was at Facebook headquarters a while back with Sheryl Sandberg, the COO, and she said to me that they have 200 feet a day of Facebook feed that their average user looks through.
That's longer than a CVS receipt.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that means that people are consuming at such a rapid pace that it's indigestible, right? They have consumption indigestion. And what that means is that they don't extract the value or the nutrient value of the content. And what does that cause them to do is shove more food down their throat, which means that no matter what band comes out, oh, they had a great hit song. Okay, but now who's next? And who's next? And the problem is that that's not a scalable business for record labels or even individuals. Actually, if I can plug yet another company that I'm involved with, BYG Music, Big Music, bygmusic.com. So Krish Sharma, who's a producer of the Rolling Stones, CEO of Big Music and dear friend, he started this company going on the same philosophy we've talked about, which is this gig economy for musicians. There's all these musicians on, let's say, Facebook, right? And they're doing their little cover songs or original songs, but they can't monetize. There's the same problem with all the companies are the same, right? So what BYG Music did was they went to people like Ford and to the television studio, the movie studios, and to other things that make sense in the music space. And they said, would you give us a budget if we could get your product or something in front of thousands of people? And what they did was they came up with this platform where it's kind of like Nfluence, but you as a musician can go on and say, oh, this brand wants me to create a song for them. So when the Bohemian Rhapsody movie for Queen came out, the studio came to BYG Music and said, can you do an activation for us, a campaign for us? And they got 12 of their top Facebook musicians, and they had them do We Are the Champions and do Bohemian Rhapsody and Fat Bottom Girl, right? And they posted on their social, and the numbers went through the roof, and it was a huge, huge success for them. So that's kind of, again, where I think even the music industry is going, where we're creating gig economy opportunities for musicians. That doesn't exist.
It's 100% true. And as much, and I'm a big U2 guy, so I have to always say that because I love those guys. But when they released their album and gave it out on iTunes, they did not give it out for free. iTunes bought the rights for a year, whatever it was. And so they started out with, let's say, I forget the number, but it was like $100 million. And any band would say, yeah, I'll take $100 million for my next album. And the back catalog sold at a rate they hadn't seen in years. And they were one of the top selling bands of that year, especially for a catalog. So when we look at what we do, like that kind of stuff does work. Did they take some hits? Yeah, because they were Mavericks. They did something different. But we're changing this. And back to U2 and Rolling Stones, they are the two biggest bands in the world. If they tour, they will have the greatest tour of all time in terms of revenue. But you no longer have to fill a stadium to make a lot of money.
That's right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even the Rolling Stones they're a breed that's, we're in an instant satisfaction society now. You can get a 19-year-old doing a pop song and it's a hit and you forget about them tomorrow. So I've seen the Stones a bunch of times live, just phenomenal.
Yeah, they're great live performers. U2 is great. Katy Perry's. But when you start talking about stadium level acts, almost all of them started more than 25 years ago.
That's right.
Which in music is forever, ancient.
Yep.
And even the newest ones that fill stadiums don't have the pedigree of going, anytime we go on the road, we're going to sell out around the world. It's crazy. You want to ask me a question?
I actually would like to ask you
Please.
a question.
I'm going to sit back and relax.
Yeah, you are. Okay.
Hammer away.
So this is Stephen Tyszka on the Break It Down show.
That's right.
With my guest, Pete Turner.
Hello.
Pete, actually, I do have a question. I was thinking about this over the last week. We scheduled this podcast a week ago. You've been on my mind. Listened to a bunch of your content. Very cool. Actually,
Nice.
You have a new fan.
Nice. Yes.
And I would like to know, from your perspective, what do you gain from these podcasts? Because I know that I always walk away extremely enriched in every experience I have. I'm only so curious to see the breadth of wisdom that you must be receiving over 600 episodes.
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, the word enriched is what I use all the time. My life is so enriched by this. I mean, because of my podcast, I'm sitting here in your house, and it's wonderful, and I love musicians. I love music, and so these kind of experiences, and I met John through the podcast, right? So it provides opportunity, it provides enrichment, it provides all of these experiences that enable me to just constantly give those things back out to people. And I think that's part of the reason why my people, while they love the show, is that we try not to work in a negative space. Yes, we have political-based shows, but I like to play tennis with that. So we'll have Victor Davis Hanson, who's wonderful and everybody loves him, and he drives so much traffic, and he leans to the right. He's conservative, but he's also brilliant and has impeccable credentials. The next day, we had Rory Kennedy on the show. So... Yes, those that come in and listen to one and they want to get mad or happy about Victor Davis Hanson can then the next day hear Rory Kennedy. And then you have to deal with the fact that obviously she's a Kennedy. And then she had this great post the other day. And as Venice was voting down like the latest climate change legislation that they passed, that day, that moment, the city council room flooded. So it's like, okay, look, these are both rational, reasonable people talking about real things. So if there's climate change, if there's not, who cares? Either way, their office flooded as they were discussing the very problem that climate change is supposed to bring about. You have to deal with it. And so if you go down the path of my show, I believe that my job is to gather us kind of in the middle so we can all find the problems that are solvable. And some of these problems are multivariate, extremely complicated problems that honestly the government really can't solve because they're just too wiggly. You need nonprofits. You need people that are passionate about whatever it is. So that's the value I bring, is that I make these cases, I bring these experts in, I bring someone like you in to say, there's a lot of negative things about technology in the future, but understand there's great things coming. I use my personal assistant now a lot more than I did even a year ago. Hey Siri, do this. Hey Siri, do that. So that's what I get out of it, as I get to share these incredible experiences, and I get to obviously reap them myself, but more importantly, push them back out, because you don't get to determine your legacy. Everybody else does. And so if you want to have a legacy, you need to invest in other people's wellness, happiness, that kind of thing. So that's what I get out of it.
That's amazing. Honestly, I think that it actually makes me want to have a podcast because...
Well, you do.
Well, yeah, I'm going to call it Break It Up.
No, we call it the Break It Down show. Look, John produced this episode.
Yeah.
I have He's not doing much guest hosting, but that's fine. He didn't want to. This is one of the things that's special about my show is you can absolutely be a producer and a co-host with me. And if you keep doing it, I'll just say it's your show. So I do this all the time because this is sort of how I scale. I can only know so many people.
So cool.
But you know thousands of people, and you can say, you know what, Pete, I want to do an episode on your show with you. So you do have a podcast.
That'd be cool. So we should talk offline because I probably have some people in my circle of influence, as you do, that it'd be kind of fun maybe to even bring two guests on that are both trying to solve the same problem from different perspectives.
I love that.
And let us like hash through it on the podcast.
Yeah.
That could be engaging for the listeners.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I want to create is these unique experiences they couldn't get anywhere else.
Exactly.
So, yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Why isn't your lovely wife here? Wasn't she supposed to join today?
Oh, my girlfriend. She couldn't make it. Yeah, because she has to work. Soon she'll be done with the current gig that she's on. But yeah, for sure. Well, I would love. I was trying to describe where you live. Anyhow, she wasn't able to make it this time, but we will for sure do it next time.
Yeah. And Cindy, we'll have to bring Cindy too.
Well, thanks so much, man, for coming on the show. That was great. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Pete.